Hello my dear students, let's see another chapter, that is Unit 7 in History, Tribe, Nomads and Settled Communities. Now when we talk about tribe, nomads and settled communities, here tribe and nomads means the same, right? Tribes are clans, group of people, they live in the interior of the forest. Tribes are also nomads, and tribes, they are people who keep on moving from one place to another. We have studied about nomadic tribes even in geography also, nomads, right? So there are people who move from one place to another in search of shelter, food, pasture land, in search of work. And these are, they don't live a settled life, right? So they are called as tribes and nomads, and there are settled communities also now. Now when these tribes and nomads have settled in the interior of the forest and they form their community there, which community is totally secluded from the normal, we can say from the people that live in the cities. So they are totally secluded from the city. They have their own community, they have their own lifestyle, culture, food, religion, religious values, they have their, so they work there, and the work that they do is agriculture, rearing cattle, then they have pottery making or carpet making or basket making, art, paintings. So they have their own, they have their own small settled communities that is there where they live. So in this chapter we will be studying about these tribes, nomads and how they formed into settled communities that are still found in India. Okay, so we'll see where all these communities are found and what are the dominant communities in the different states. So let's start with the chapter. The first that I will be teaching you about, the first topic that we will be discussing actually will be beyond big cities. Let's see about beyond big cities, tribal societies. Now beyond big cities, here they were divided into numerous numbers of unequal clans. Now there were no the division of the Varna system we have already studied about. Such societies, they were divided. Here the tribal societies were unequal division in the clan. Those were known as tribal societies. Now member of the tribes were untitled by kingship bonds. Now what do you mean by kingship bonds? Now who's the head? There is a hierarchy, or there is a session where there is a succession about we talk about this father, then the son, so and so on. So many tribes obtained their livelihoods from agriculture, as I already told you, and they were hunters and gatherers and herders. That means cattle rearing was one of the occupation that they used to follow. Then some of the nomadic tribes, they moved from one place to another. Yes, as they are nomads, they moved from one place to another. These tribal groups control land and pasture jointly. That means land and pasture means the land for agriculture, and the pasture land that is used for rearing cattle. And these amounts were divided among the household according to its own rules. So they follow their own rules, they make their own rules in their community. Many large tribes, they thrive in different parts of the world. Yes, in the different parts of the subcontinent, you will find the tribes of Gond in Madhya Pradesh, you will find Homs in Assam, and there are so many different other tribes. So basically in the central India, when we talk about Gond is the basic dominant tribal clan, and in the Assam region there are Ahoms. Now the next we talk about is who were tribal people. Now tribal people, they move from one, so they were, the historians have told them as travelers, and a very scanty information, a very less information is can be collected about these tribes. Why very less information? Because they are very secluded, they don't go and mix up with the common people. They have their own community, they have their own place, they have their own occupation, they have their own culture and the food habits, and then they don't mix up with the outside people, and then they don't let outside people also come and mix up with them. Still, there in the world there are tribes that are they are very primitive. They are not at all in touch with the 21st century. They still live in the interior of the forest, and they still are not at all competent, or they are not at all compatible with the people unknown to them. So they don't allow them to mix up, and they don't mix up with them. So that is why we have very scanty, very less information regarding these people. Now these tribal peoples, now only something that you have seen or something you have heard, only that oral information is available. Now present day historians have started using their oral traditions to write tribal histories. Now tribal people were found almost in every region of the subcontinent, and the influence of tribe varied at different point of time. Now some powerful tribes control large territories of Punjab. Khokhar tribe was also influenced. In Punjab we have the Khokhar tribes. Then later the Gakhars became more important. Then their chief was Kamal Khan. Gakhar was a noble mansabdar in Akbar's court. Then in Multan and Sindh, they have Langhars, Arghuns dominated. So there were Baluchis, there were so many, Gond, there were Adivasis, there were Ahoms, there were so many other different tribes dominant in the different states in the subcontinent. Now they were divided into smaller clans. Now smaller clans means smaller group of people under different chiefs. Now as they started settling down, the community became larger, and then they need a leader. So because of the larger community, so they divided themselves into small clans, and each clan had a chief. Now in the western Himalayas lived the shepherd tribe of Gaddis. They are distant to the subcontinents too, and was dominant by the Nagas, Ahoms, and many other tribes. So now these areas are present there. Now you can read this from page number 93. There were different tribes given, that is the present day Bihar and Jharkhand, the Chero chiefdoms. Then there were Raja Man Singh, Akbar's famous general, attacked and defeated the Cheros. And there were so many other different, the Mundas, the Santhals, in Orissa and Bengal. So there were so many different tribes that were dominant in the subcontinent. So we knew about they were tribal people. They started to increase in number. So they made small clans, and each clan has a chief, and they were dominant in different parts of the Indian subcontinent. Then the third point comes how nomads live. Now how nomads live, that means obviously nomads are people who move from one place to another. They don't lead a settled life. They do agriculture, and then they do pottery making, basket making, jewelry making. They were blacksmiths. So they are nomadic pastoralists, okay? That means they move long distance with their animals in search of pasture land. Now pasture land is the land, the grazing land that is used for the cattle. So they lived on, now when they live, they are called as nomadic pastoralists. That means they have a huge number of cattle. Now what will be the occupation then? They will be like milk, dairy products, okay. Other than the pastoral products, they were like they exchange wool, ghee, then even settle agricultures for grain, cloth, utensils, and other products. So they were nomadic pastoralists who move long distance with their cattle in search of pasture land, that is land for grazing. And the main on what they lived on milk and dairy products, and even they exchange grain, wool, ghee from the people who live, from the tribes, or from the tribes who lived a settled life. Then the next we will be seeing about how the different the Banjaras. Now Banjaras, basically you all know what are the Banjara. Banjara means what? nomads, right? We call them as Banjaras because they move from place to place, right? They don't have a, so they used caravans that were known as tanda. Okay, caravans, you all know there's a cart driven by ox, and it has a covering on top. Okay, they use those. They are called caravans, and by these groups, when they are used by the Banjaras, these caravans were called as tanda. Sultan Alauddin Khilji's used the Banjaras to transport grain to the city markets. Emperor Jaleen wrote a memo that the Banjaras carried grain on their bullocks from different areas and sold it in the town. They transported food grains in the Mughal army during a war. So with a large army, there could be like, say, a lakh of bullocks carrying grains. So these were the different tribes that were held in the Mughal time. So they were pastoralists, they were nomads, they were settled communities. So they reared animals, sold animals, lived on the milk products, exchanged grains and ghee and wool from the settled communities. They even made from the bronze. Okay, from these they made different ornaments and different say flowers or something like that they used to make. So here there is, on page number 96, you will find there is a crocodile, bronze crocodile. Okay. So the next we will be studying about changing societies, new caste and hierarchies. Now let's talk about the next topic, that is changing society, new caste and hierarchies. Now when there was a change in the society, the economic condition, they need to grow. With the coming time, with the coming situation, with the coming cultures, they have to mingle with the people, they need to grow. And people with new skills were required. So the similar caste, that is also called as jati, emerged within varnas. Now like there were subcaste. There were the four major castes, that was the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas and the Shudras. In them, several subcastes emerged. For example, new caste among the people, that were the Brahmanas. On the other hand, many tribes and social groups were taken into the caste-based society and given the status of jatis. Especially artisans, smiths, carpenters and masons were recognized as separate jatis by the Brahmins. Now they were the Brahmins, they were the Purohits, the Pandits, the priests, they were the Brahmins. Then come the Kshatriyas, that were the soldier. Then the Vaishya, that was the traders and merchants and artisans. And then came the Shudras, the low caste people who did menial jobs, right? Like there were slaves, the servants, then they were, say cobblers, all these. Now there was a need, there was a different society, there was a different people itself, they were given a different jati. That was a subcaste that was given. They were recognized as separate jatis. Who were they? They were carpenters, masons and smiths and artisans. Now rather than varna became the basis of organizing society. So they were, in this time there was not only these four basic varnas, castes, but they were, apart from that, they were different subcastes that also emerged in the society. Now among the Kshatriyas, new Rajput clans became powerful in the 11th and the 12th centuries. Then they belonged to the different lineage, that is the Hunas, the Chandelas, the Chalukyas and so on. So there were different subcastes that had started to emerge, not only in the Shudras, there were subcastes in the Kshatriyas, there were subcastes in the Vaishyas. So there were many subcastes that had emerged. So the rise of the Rajput clan to the position of the ruler set an example for the tribal people to follow. So they were tribal people who had the king, or they were also people who ruled. Okay. So the next we will be seeing about closely two clans, that is the Gond and Ahoms. The Gond basically, as I told you in the beginning of the video, that they dominate the parts of the central India. So the Gond live in the forested region called the Gondwana. Yes, the land of Madhya Pradesh is also called as Gondwana and inhabited by the goats. That's why it was known as Gondwana. And they followed shifting cultivation. Now, what shifting cultivation? That means you all have studied about shifting cultivation in geography also, right? So, what is shifting cultivation? Like one patch of land they have used for a long period of time, so they will move to the other part of the patch of the land where they will leave this land to regain its fertility. Okay, or they do like shifting, or they from a long period of time, if they are growing a particular thing on that land, so they will shift it to something else that will regain, start growing something else that will regain the fertility of that soil. That's called shifting cultivation. So the large Gond tribe was further divided into smaller clans, and each clan had its own Raja or Rai. Again, they were huge in number, so they were divided into different clans, and each clan has a chief or a Raja or a Rai. About the time of the power of the Delhi Sultan, the decline of the larger Gond kingdoms were beginning to dominate the smaller Gond chiefs. The Akbarnama and the history of the Akbar reign mentioned the Gond kingdom and the Garha Katanga had 70,000 villages under their control. They also had a different administrative system. That kingdoms were being centralized and they were divided into Gards. Okay. Now these Gard had controlled particular Gond clan. This were further divided into small units of 84 villages and Chaurasi. 84 means Chaurasi. So they had a clan, further division into Gard and then Chaurasi. These Chaurasi were subdivided into Barhots and they were made up of 12 villages. So how they were divided? They were divided into Gards. They were divided into Gards, and these Gards carry how many? The Gond kingdom were divided. You can say they were divided into clans, small clans. Then they were further divided into Gards. Then they were further divided into Chaurasi. That is 84. Chaurasi, that is 84 villages, and then they were further divided into Barhots. And they were further divided into that the Barhots carry 12 villages. Okay, so they carry 12 villages. So now these were the division in the Gond clan. So they were divided into small clans. Then the clans were divided because they had 70,000 villages under their control. So it was difficult for 70,000 villages with so many people to control. So they divided into subdivided so that it is easy for the control of the Raja or the Rai or the chief. So divided into small clans, Gard, Chaurasi and Barhots. Now the emergence of the large states changed the nature of the Gond society. Like these Gond societies were smaller clans, even if 70,000 villages, but they are smaller than the kingdoms that emerged during the time, like the Mughals and so on, the Marathas. Now they gradually divided into unequal social classes, and the Brahmins received land grants from the Gond Raja and became more influenced. Still, the Brahmins had they had an upper class. The treatment that was given to them were high. The Gond chief now wished to recognize as Rajputs. So Aman Das, the Gond Raja of the Garha Katanga, assumed the title of Sangram Shah. His son Dalpat married Princess Durgavati, the daughter of the Salbhana and the Chandela Rajput Raja of Mahoba, to get recognized in the clan of Rajputs. He did so. So Dalpat, however, died. Early Rani Durgavati was capable enough to rule on behalf of a 5-year-old son, Bir Narayan. So under her kingdom, even more extensive, in 1956, the Mughal forces under Asaf Khan attacked Garha Katanga and she gave a strong resistance, and finally, after fighting hard, soon she died. So that was how the Garha Katanga emerged. And the Garha Katanga was a very rich state and it earned wealth by trapping and exporting of elephants, horses. There were kingdoms of the Mughal. They defeated the Gonds. When the Mughal defeated the Gonds, they captured a huge booty of precious coins because their job was this only. So they were a rich state because they started trapping and exporting wild elephants, right? So they had a huge booty, means a lot of money, a lot of precious things, expensive. So when they were defeated by the Mughals, so Mughal had, captured all these, the coins, elephants, so many things. And then they annexed the part of the kingdom and granted rest to Chandra Shah and uncle of Veer Narayan. So despite the fall of the Gada Katanga, the Gond kingdom survived for a long time and they became much weaker and struggled a lot at that time. Now they are still there, but they are not as occupied a place or a land. They are in the interior of the forest. They are living in their soul settled communities. Now the next comes the Ahoms. So the next we will be studying about the Ahoms. The Ahoms are the inhabitants tribe that lived in Assam. Now Ahoms migrated to the Brahmaputra valley from the present-day Myanmar, and in the 13th century they created a new state suppressing the older political thing, and they formed the Bhuniyas, the landlords, and the Chahutiyas and the Koch Hojas, and subjugated the other tribes. So they emerged more powerful. So they emerged very powerful after subjugating so many other different kingdoms of the Brahmaputra valley. So however, Ahoms had many invasions from southwest. Even at that time, there were Mughals who continuously suppressed them, and the Mir Jumla attacked the Mughal under the Mir Jumla attacked the home ruler. Despite the brave defense, the Ahoms were defeated and direct Mughal control over the long lost region. The Ahoms stayed dependent upon labor force. Now here is a very a labor force, the division of labor force, how they were divided. Okay, so each village had to send a number. Now these forced labor, they were forced labors. Okay, so they had they had their clans. Okay, so to make people equal in the clans, if there is one extra, so they will send it to the other one. So if there is one extra, they will send it to the other. So that is how they used to maintain. So each village had to send a number of pegs. Now what are these pegs? The word P-A-I-K-S. So this is the word pegs. Okay. So a census of each population was taken. Okay, and they had to have equal number. If they don't have an equal number, they pick one and put it where there is an unequal number. So people who are heavily populated areas were shifted to less populated areas. So Ahoms were thus broken up by the first half of the 17th century. The administration became quite centralized. So they were not able to, they were settle life in one place. So if there was some extra here, they were put there. If there was some extra, so they have to have an equal number of people in their clan. So almost all adults, males, served the army during the war. And other times they were engaged in building dams, irrigation activity, doing the things that were required to be done in their communities. Ahoms were introduced to new methods of rice cultivation. In Assam, it's famous for they eat a lot of rice cultivation. Then these were also divided. Now this society was divided into clans or khels. There were few caste of artisans, so they were like Ahoms area were adjoining kingdoms. The khel often controlled the villages. That means they were head of the clan. There were peasants, there were artisans, there were village communities, small. So even the king could not take it away without the community consult. So a khel often was controlled several villages, small villages. There were several villages that were controlled by the khel. And these peasants of the land, even the king couldn't interfere. Originally, the Ahom worship. Now, when we talk about the worship, they worship nature. They had some tribal gods. They are like in the 17th century. They influenced the Brahmanas. They increased the temples. making of the temples, then god, goddesses. The temple, there was, the king in the reign of Sip Singh. Hinduism became a predominant religion, but the Ahoms king was completely give up their traditional beliefs. So they followed Brahmanism, but they never gave completely. They adopted the Hinduism. They had their own religious traditions and beliefs that they used to follow. So Ahom societies were very sophisticated society. They were poets, they were scholars, they were important workers written of Sanskrit. They even have their historical work. That means the script that is the Buranjis that is called. They have this historical work that is kept about the written document telling about the Ahom society, Ahom tribe society. So here we have seen so many different things in this chapter regarding the Ahoms. We had seen what are tribes, how the tribe worked, the different communities, how they live, what was their agriculture. And we studied about the two big tribes of India, that is the Ahoms, that is dominant in the Brahmaputra valley, and we saw about the Gond kingdom, that is the Gondwana, dominant in Madhya Pradesh in central India. So I hope you have understood this chapter well. I want you to read the chapter and mark the answers. Thank you.